Okay, so this is a Plainfield Planning Commission meeting on Monday, October 7th. We have Jesse Cooper, Will Pitkin from the Central Vermont Review Planning Commission, and Nikki Spotto, also from the Planning Commission. So we'll start the meeting. We get to do the little business, which is approve the minutes from the last meeting. So Jesse, could you make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, and I'll second it. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we did that. We want the first item on the agenda is to discuss the planning grant for a new neighborhood development area. And Nikki, I think that's your wheelhouse, as the term goes.
Yes. Okay. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Oh, please do.
Okay. It says the host isn't allowing multiple.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me. I'll work on that.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Is that your screen, or is that my screen?
Let me try.
That's my screen. Some of it is mine. The inbox is mine, so I don't want to do that. I have a bunch of. So how do I undo that? Okay. Stop share. You don't want to see the computer models in the hurricane. Allow. You could just start describing it, and I'll work on that.
Okay. So how much of an overview do you want? I was going to really just start talking about the grant and the application process.
Yep, I think we knew. Well, I mean, we did pursue the previous version of this, which was I forget the name of it, but basically this is kind of replacing that. Enhanced development area next to villages.
Yes. Okay, hang on a second. All right, so I can just talk if it's not going to let me share.
I'm working on it.
Okay. So this grant is it's for neighborhood development area. It's for the RPC to do perform municipal technical assistance. It's a 2024 contract, and they are distributing 5,000 per municipality. So part of the scope of the services, which is in the scope of work I believe I sent to you all, is basically reviewing municipal readiness through a draft application, and then going through a pre-application meeting with the department to review ready applications. And then if ready for approval, you'll go for the final application. If not ready for approval, then a memo report to the municipality on necessary updates will be given. In general, bylaw amendments are outside the scope of this contract. However, in the final application part of the process, there is a small allocation of funding for for bylaw changes, for like necessary bylaw changes in order for you to submit the application.
I think we can try sharing the screen now, see what happens.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Yes. There we go. Can you see it now?
I can see. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, so I just spoke about this slide. Let me just move on. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is really just what we can do in the short term. So, you can expect existing programs like the designation program to continue until the end of 2025. Eventually, existing designations will transfer into the new framework with the regional plan adoption. And then obviously, this is a program that's, a big value for planning and zoning for neighborhood development. So the application review, key eligibility requirements are core designation, which you have, which is the village center, an approved town plan that's not expired, a draft application showing that you do have bylaw modernization, and then also having this pre-application meeting with the department. Okay, so it's basically an editable Word document. And the responses should be pretty straightforward. Some of the questions are a little more detailed, such as when you get into obviously the zoning and density requirements and also complete streets requirements. I'll go into that a little bit later. This is just kind of an example of providing a simple, straightforward answer that you have an approved plan dated on such date. Okay, the maps. The maps are a pretty big part. You need one showing your core area, such as your village center, the proposed NDA area, and that boundary. Zoning districts, the flood hazard, river corridor exclusions, steep slopes, important resources, and then this existing or planned public facilities map, which also can include complete streets.
Sort of ironic, but the sample maps are Plainfield.
What's that?
The sample maps are Plainfield.
Yeah, yes. Oh, right.
Convenient, huh?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, this was the RPC meetup presentation from the state, from Jake Hemrick. Okay, I'm gonna go on to page, let's see, 33 shows, okay, this is just a sample of, the public facilities map that can, that shows that your planned or existing transportation infrastructure conforms with complete streets, establishes, accessibility from your village center to the neighborhood development area. And then I'll show you an example of, okay, this is just, have you done this before, Will, with the zoning district density table?
I don't think we've done that
Okay,
specific table yet.
Okay, yeah, this will become, it's more of a detailed area that will need a lot more thought, but with Home Act, it allows 5 units per acre statewide for all allowed residential uses in eligible water sewer areas, unless you're looking for more intensive multi-family units. But that's and obviously duplexes must be allowed in all residential districts.
What defines a unit? Is that a dwelling unit or is that a?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Okay, so this is the checklist for the complete streets, which they say you're required to have 8 out of 10 when planning. We can help coordinate the mapping for this and work with Brian as well and with the municipality to understand what, I guess, what the layout is, what you're intending for complete streets. Okay. And then finally, I just wanted to show you this, which is also building and lot patterns checklist. It's another, I guess, part of, which you'll revise in your bylaws. I'm not sure. I guess will talk more to the bylaws because I think you had a draft application back in 2022, but we're not sure if it was approved or adopted.
A draft application for?
Your zoning updates.
We have a draft that's a draft zoning that's gonna go before a vote, or we might try to do it interim, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, the crux of what is involved in this level of application process. It's, you obviously know this is, what the purpose is, and let's go and see, and then also what the requirements are in terms of it connecting to your village center. So if you have any questions, I'll just stop here and see what you think of the application and how we move forward. If you think there's like readiness with the municipality to start this process.
Well, could you send me those slides?
Absolutely.
Okay. The project that this impacts directly is in the development stages with some of the design work needing to be done. So, the layout of the streets, the sidewalks, the connectivity is still in the formative state. So once that's developed, and we would certainly try to develop them in accordance with that, they would meet the application. Then we could go ahead and do this. Now, the grant, this application is just for the grant, right? Or is it for the?
Yes, for preparing the grant application and yes, coordinating all the maps and bylaw changes.
Yeah, because the doing the maps costs a fair amount of money. So would this grant cover that expense?
I think in terms of, oh, that's a good question. It's probably around, I want to say about 10 hours work perhaps from our
Yeah,
mapping department.
yeah,
But it could also be a big portion of your like the way that we break down how you spend the money
right, okay.
could go towards a little bit, a larger percentage to that, because you know your area, you've defined your boundary. And in terms of complete streets and the level of detail, I think it is like an generalized kind of concept plan versus very detailed design that I guess like Sandy would be working with Arian on the neighborhood development plan.
Right. That, all those preliminary drawings and stuff.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, if we get the designation, we don't, that project has advantages for Act 250
Yes,
compliance.
absolutely.
That's essentially the goal of having that designation, is that I'm not sure what percentage, but Act 250 requirements are somewhat limited.
Yes, yeah. Will, do you want to speak to that at all? I know that, in general, it's supporting of, I think, it reduces the fees, but also right now, because of the interim exemptions, you have, less application for permits for the process. So
You might be, yeah, depending on how many houses, I think, I'm assuming it would be under the 75 unit limit. Sorry, let me pull this up.
Yeah, it would be, this project would be under that.
So right, so that would mean you'd be exempt from Act 250 permitting in the neighborhood development area.
Right. That's the point of doing the work.
Right. And
wasn't that the case for if there's like mixed income development slated?
right. Yeah, so that's actually basically the short answer is yes, and that's the priority housing projects is what the state calls them, the mixed income development. And those are exempt within the neighborhood development area and actually within a half mile of it. But they're not exempt in the village center. So the village center has up to 50 dwelling units. So you currently have the village center. You already have that interim exemption of up to 50 dwelling units. Within a quarter mile of the village center, the neighborhood development area would bring that you could get from 50, like the cutoff where Act 250 jurisdiction would come in would go from 50 up to 75 within the neighborhood development area. And that's just for any housing development. And if you have the priority housing projects, so the mixed income housing, that has no limit on the number of dwelling units. And that would also extend to a half mile radius outside of the neighborhood development area. So it wouldn't be just limited to within it. And again, that exemption for priority housing projects, so no limit on the number of units. That is not currently available. That is not available with the village center, which Plainfield currently has. It's available with the neighborhood development area. And then and then one other. Nikki, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that tax increment financing is not available with Village Center, but it would be available with neighborhood development area. Maybe to
And
help
what
pay
is that
for the-
exactly?
That's basically financing. It would most likely be like water or sewer extensions. But it's basically financing by essentially receiving money now and then paying it off gradually over time with taxes that will be collected from the properties that are built once the development goes forward. So it's basically like paying back on future tax revenue. And so it's like more, usually get a better borrowing rate, and lenders will be more willing to do it because it's coming from municipal taxes. So it's considered like a more, I guess, reliable way to get their money back over time. I can get more info on that. I focused more on the Act 250 exemptions tonight, but I should know this off the top of my head, but there are a lot of moving parts in this. But that is, I believe, and I will confirm, one benefit for one to just try.
And just to, maybe this is sort of outside the purview, maybe this is more of an internal planning conversation, but we would be seeking this in order to be able to do the subdivision. Is that true, Will?
Well,
Colgan?
I mean, we can do a lot of stuff without the new NNDA, we'll call it. But that development area, if what Will said is right, is that it enables some financing options, and it would. I think it makes the Act 250 process go away. Now,
But where
Will,
would the Act 250 process kick in for what we're talking about with that?
the number of lots.
So the actual subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, if you more than 10, 10, how many lots on 10 acres, how many 10 acres, those
Okay.
limitations. So it would give that parcel some more flexibility, and
Mhm.
probably lower the cost of the whole project.
Yeah.
And one question about the bylaws that you're the draft bylaws you're hoping
Yes.
to adopt. Is that select board, or is that like the town population votes? Like, what is the actual process?
We've usually done it we wanted to have it by a town vote. And, we started the hearing process a while ago, ran into some changes we wanted to make around the cannabis cultivation, which turned out to be pretty complicated and a real moving target.
Yeah.
But I think we've ironed those things out. And then the high water hit, and all of a sudden the town was involved with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're getting back together. I was hoping, election, November 5th vote, not going to happen. Maybe with this village expansion project or the Goddard campus, we have some projects that really need to move quicker than the Plainfield Planning Commission has a history of doing, fortunately. Yeah. So I'm just thinking of what would it be to adopt this by interim zoning, because I think that interim, you have to end up having a town vote, but in this case we have two projects in town involving housing, and I think most people in town would be in favor of. And the river corridor protection area, no one's going to vote that down. I mean, let's face it, this is all pretty gimme stuff. So the interim adoption by the select board could make sense.
With those draft bylaws, my first concern was exactly what you're saying, the river corridor, and I will get back to that because there's a loophole in the Act 250 exemptions that I think could be pretty important, but you can very easily shore up by adopting those draft bylaws with the river corridor protection. Um, but I'm also wondering, so the as Nikki was saying, the 8 out of 10 like zoning requirements to be eligible for the neighborhood development area. Do you know if the proposed bylaws like when were they updated basically? Because the Home
Uh,
Act
uh,
2023 added a lot of new requirements. And then the last version we saw in our internal server at CVRPC was from 2022, but I wasn't sure
I
if you had a
think
more recent
I
version.
sent Brian the latest version, and I think I asked him to just make sure all the T's were crossed. And I think that's the version. I can send that to you too. And
Okay.
that's one of the things that hangs us up is I send it to the Regional Planning Commission, say, please review, make sure it's all good.
Mhm.
And I don't hear back for a while.
Yeah.
So we need to do that again before we do the interim, because we did the whole river corridor was, gone back and forth for a year or so, because
Mhm.
those requirements kept changing. It turns out the state's going to take over that anyway.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'll send you a copy. Take a
Yeah.
look at it, make sure it's all good, and then we can discuss what changes we might need to make for the new development area application. But I think we got it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that leads us. I don't know if we're done with that. I want to talk about the Goddard College campus project, but I think let's clear up what we need to do for this new neighborhood development area.
Oh, quick
Yeah.
question before we move on, for Will Pitkin.
Yes.
Did something jump out in the 2022 version that there were things missing from that draft?
No, it was I saw that was intended, at least in part, for the river corridor protections to add those in. And that was great. So that's basically what's missing from, I guess, 2011, whatever the
Oh
current
yeah, that's what's missing
adopted
in,
Yeah.
one is.
and the
So
2011 is the active one, and yeah, the river corridors are
right.
missing.
So it's really the river corridor that was what jumped out
Yeah.
as needing to be kind of shored up, and then also the having the 8 out of 10 requirements. And I don't know off the top of my head what the
Right.
It sounded like we got most of them
great. Okay. Um,
once we adopt the new zone.
So I have a presentation that I think um we basically skip. I mean, maybe I'll send it to you as a reference, but I think you already know the key points. Really just uh yeah, it can be a reference of what exemptions are currently available. Act 250 exemptions are currently available with the village center. You can compare those to the additional ones that would be available with the neighborhood development area. And then I will also add a little bit um, just about the tax increment financing and
Yeah,
whether
that sounds great. Yeah,
because I think that is a good thing for the town, and I should know, but I don't off the top of my head whether you already have that with the village center or whether that's something that you'd only be able to get with the neighborhood development area.
I think that
Um,
there's something advantageous in the village center, but this uh, specific project needed to have it wasn't in the village center, but it was close enough proximity, so the new guidelines for priority housing included it. You follow what I'm saying?
um,
In terms of the village center um, advantages, but not the Act 250 um, advantages with the new
okay.
development area. I think, it gets kind of complicated with all these
Yeah,
different areas.
especially, and then you get like, is this like priority housing? Like, is this basically, pushing through housing, or is this like capital P, capital H, capital P, priority housing projects, which have the specific like state, statutory definition, and those are eligible for certain ones. Basically, what the reason I'm really like emphasizing the river corridor is because priority housing projects, capital letters, within a half mile of a neighborhood development area are exempt from Act 250 jurisdiction. And then basically a loophole is that they're uh, all the other housing development exemptions that they added in 2024. This one's from 2023, which is why the loophole exists. In 2024, all the new housing exemptions, housing development exemptions from Act 250 review specifically state, except for in the river corridor and flood hazard area. If you're trying to build in the river corridor or flood hazard area, you're still have to go through Act 250 review, and they're going to stop it from being built, because the last thing we need.
Yeah, we're not in that. We got that one covered. We're not building anywhere near that brook.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
worry.
exactly. And basically, right. So, the existing zoning has flood hazard area regulations, but doesn't have the river corridor. And then obviously no one in Plainfield wants that, but say some like unscrupulous developer comes in, draws a half-mile radius around it, and then, as we know today,
Yeah.
just
No,
because
we-
people don't want something to happen doesn't mean that they can stop it based on regulations. So want to just make sure that, the regulations exist so that you can definitely just say, no way, absolutely not, and then just
Another reason to consider the interim adoption.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then right, and those interim Act 250 exemptions, basically the timing exactly lines up with when the state river corridor permit comes, when that jurisdiction moves to the state. So there's like, you can really sneak through a lot in a couple years, especially when it's priority housing with no limit on how many units. So basically, I just saw that and was like, "Oh my god!" Like,
Yeah. Well, don't worry. We're not
you folks are on
unscrupulous.
top of it. Just
And we're not going to do that.
cool. Right. All right.
Okay.
And then let's see. Yeah. So the deadline for the neighborhood designation area application or development area, sorry, is December 31st, 2025. So you have till the end of next year. Obviously, it sounds like you want to move faster than that, but that is the deadline. All right. I think that's all.
And what does the and let's just summarize what the grant application that will provide us. We're going to apply for a grant. We're going to apply for a grant, and the $5,000, and that grant is going to do what?
So what that will do is determine we're kind of determining the pre-application readiness already, but we will help support you in writing the application, producing the maps. We coordinate with the state with meeting halfway through the grant term. So this grant term started back in the summer. So it actually ends in the end of June of 2025. So if you're looking to expedite the grant application, we can do that. If you think you need more time, we can extend that grant end of date as well. I think they're pretty lenient on that.
Well, I think we want to do the grant application as soon as we can. Yes. We want to move right on that.
So I think, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. So we're just trying to be clear, because we're going to actually there's a group in town meeting that deals with the village expansion project, and we're going to have that meeting Wednesday, and I want to be able to explain what's going on. And what needs to happen is really the site plan of the expansion project.
Yes,
the first part of that application.
Yes, and I would say the first thing you should do is just determine your site boundary line.
Yeah.
And that can just be a marker on a map. That's fine. Then moving forward, reviewing the application and seeing like where there's parts that you might need extra help on, or where we can, assist you essentially. So it's technical assistance. But I'm thinking that a majority of the grant will go into the final application process, and the midterm meeting, which ideally should happen by February with the state. I mean, if you want to do it in December, I mean, we could aim for that, but it might have to wait until after the new year. Okay. Depending how much we get everything together. But we'll need, obviously advance notice, and also to get Brian's schedule going
for maps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think I have a picture of it. The other item we have going on in town is the sale of Goddard College campus. And the deal hasn't been closed, but a developer from Lebanon has made a contract with the campus. They have about 300 apartments in Lebanon. The guy who founded it was a Dartmouth graduate who wanted to stay around, and he said he's committed to providing historic buildings. We'll see where this goes, but the current zoning map doesn't give them a lot of options in terms of, they're in the rural residential zone, which is, small, not a lot development, not multifamily housing. It's just, it's always been a college campus and sort of in a world of its own, so to speak. So what I was thinking of is expanding the village district to include the campus. It's on water and sewer. It's, so that would allow, if you look at all the permitted uses, it would allow this developer to do a lot more options. Build some multifamily housing, some apartments, condos. I'm not sure what they're really thinking of doing, but the way it is zoned right now is they can't do a whole lot in terms of increasing the housing. The problem is there's really no continuity. There's a bunch of conserved land, a health center. There's no, to call that the village and incorporate it isn't quite, it's kind of a stretch, because there's no like commercial or dense housing between the campus and the village center. But it's not far. I could throw a frisbee between the two with the wind
throw a
going
frisbee
right
a quarter
through.
mile.
Yeah. Is it a quarter mile? Yeah. From boundary to boundary? Yeah.
Because village center, having one of those that's not having village centers that aren't contiguous, like if you have a river in the middle, that's one thing. But if you have like a couple parcels in the middle, that doesn't really work. But a neighborhood development area, those have to be within a quarter mile of a village center. So it doesn't have to be adjacent to it, has to be within a quarter mile. And those can be on, like, they can have two parts that don't touch each other. They both have to be close to the
non-contiguous.
village center or the downtown, the core designation. But for example, in Middlebury, my hometown, I grew up in one part of a neighborhood development area. And then on the far side of downtown, a couple miles away, is the same neighborhood development area. It's just like the other chunk of it. So that might be, that might actually be easier, because if it's within a quarter mile of the village center, then yeah, then that's
it would make the application immensely more complicated to work with two different projects that are really just forming in what they want to do. One hasn't even been purchased. Both of them haven't been really done yet. So that application would be interesting. What about just making it calling it the village, the commercial district in the town? It's rural residential now, if you look at the map. And the village is there's a commercial district, but there's also a village district, which defines more uses. I mean, it's sort of a stretch. I don't want to get into too much trouble just thinking outside what normal things are, but can you have two villages, zoning districts, not contiguous?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about the long term of Plainfield, I think it makes sense to go for the neighborhood development area, because that is the way the state designation program is heading. And by, is it 2027, Will, that this transition's going to happen? I mean, the state's advised, they remember Richard Amore had advised against the expansion of the village district. Remember that, Will, when we spoke with him?
That's because he's the administrative advisor to the committee that approves it, and the committee is just, I mean, they're pretty narrow in their focus. It's got to be boom, 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 and if you go a little further, you just won't. His knowing working with these guys, he just says they want to prove it. They want to prove that. They want to prove that. They want to prove that. Bum, bum, bum. You got to do this to get it done.
Yeah.
And So,
This is
that,
something we might want to confer about because I'm also, yeah, I'm really not sure. Like on one hand, I don't actually specifically remember Richard saying that, but that makes a lot of sense, and I absolutely like, I'm not questioning that he did say that. I'm just but one thing, so yeah, if just extending the village area, the village zoning kind of willy-nilly, so that's not viable. But the it's a little complicated, so I didn't really want to get into this tonight. But the next steps of the state designation program, um, which has just been renamed to the State Community Investment Program. Um, so okay, so basically we have the interim exemptions that are based on the current five different designated types of designated areas, and they're reforming it to try to simplify it and reduce barriers to entry for municipalities. But in doing so, you have to get over the hump of getting familiar with the whole new system. So basically, so it's going from five designations down to two. And then the way it does that is through the future land use map in the upcoming regional plan that CVRPC is going to do. So basically, in the future land use map, there are used the state just established 10 consistent land use designations statewide, region to region, and then the three densest of those. So basically, you have the current five state designations. They're gonna transition into the three densest categories of the future land use map. And then so they're automatically going to go the existing designations, or if you apply for the neighborhood development area, that will exist by the time this transition happens. So that those will become these three land use categories on the future land use map. Those ones will automatically become that, but then you can also, the town working with CVRPC can choose other areas that will become these three densest future land use map categories. And then those three future land use map categories will then transform back into the new designations. So then you'll have the designated areas. There's just going to be centers and neighborhoods. So that was horrible.
you did
I
a
know,
really nice
but
finger thing there. Well,
yeah, I'm
you
trying.
rehearsed that. I know you did.
Nikki and I have been working for like, I don't even know how long, trying to make a PowerPoint on this where it's like, how can we make this in a way that doesn't just make everyone's brain explode? And
Yes,
Well, it was
we are
entertaining
doing
anyway.
it.
answers, like it's
We're
like maybe a
doing a
little less
training
horrible,
in,
but like,
when are we doing the training? Well, like December?
yeah. So
Um,
so keep your eyes
yes.
out for the training. We are gonna do one, and hopefully, I mean, maybe it'll just be fingers. I don't know, but like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So, but the point of that is there may be opportunities where basically, so
It's
there's the
pretty
opportunity to
complex.
add
Yeah.
new designated areas which will receive the same benefits um, in that uh, when basically the town of Plainfield and CVRPC sit down and make that future land use map. So that will be in 2025, 2026. And then we go through, so there'll be the ones that are just shoot in, like the existing designations, those will just automatically become those three land use map categories that become the new designations. But then you can also go in and say, okay, well, we have these existing areas, but also like this area, we want that to be to have the benefits too. We want that to be a new designated area. So we're gonna, make it this category on the future land use map. So CVRPC and Plainfield will do that in 2025, 2026, or at least that's an option. And then the Natural Resources Board, which is getting renamed to the Land Use Review Board, will have to approve it. So that is a different group than the down DHCD. God, who even approves it now. Basically, the people that Richard Amore
Yes, the
were
village,
like,
yeah,
they won't go for it. It's a different group of people who maybe would go for it. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But that is an option. And the point of this horrible finger transformation flowchart rigmarole is that eventually it's supposed to be easier for towns to, there are only 2 designations instead of 5. And then basically it just has to be future land use map, choose the areas that get one of the 3 eligible categories. Land use review board approves it. Voila, you have the benefits. So I don't know if that is an appealing option. I don't know if that's easier than just applying for a second neighborhood development area, but that is potentially another option. And then the land use review board, they haven't even made the rules yet of how they're going to decide whether to approve or not. So presumably zoning will factor into that. And if it's zoned for something really rural, and then you're trying to say this is where we're trying to put all our housing, that might not fly. So you might need to rezone it in the meantime anyway.
well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking is, I mean, if we do, this whole process is gonna take a couple of years. And both these projects wanna start planning now. In my mind, having the campus designated village from a planning process of the new owner says, I can do this, this, and this right now. So I can start putting out designs for that. My question is that legitimate to just sort of, the area surrounding Goddard is rural residential, but the campus itself needs potential to be a more growth area. And there used to be growth areas and new growth areas and all that stuff. We just said it was part of the village because it's because it's attached to the village with water and sewer. The water and sewer department map is pretty compact. It essentially defines the village and the areas close to it.
So to clarify, this is in the zoning, or
yes,
this is
okay? This is just the zone. We're just going to change the zoning map to not even change any of the criteria other than say that the Goddard campus is part of the village. And we could still pursue all this other stuff, but that we could do in the interim zoning. My question is, do other areas have non-contiguous zoning districts? And would that fly?
What was your last comment?
A non-contiguous village zoning district. Because, or we could attach it, there's a thing where does the zoning boundary change? Will it go up and stay with boundaries by 214 and 14 and not include the residents that are next to the college? Or can we just define the college property, the 150 acres, as part of the Plainfield Village to enable them to have more options in terms of housing and potential commercial development? Because right now they can't do that.
Nikki, do you know off the top of your head? I don't, but my sense is that probably would fly. And then we can follow up. I mean, Brian would know because he's made a million zoning maps. We can follow up, and then if not, we can just do some research. But Nikki, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to see how feasible this is to actually execute in the next month or two, because you want it done. I mean, you want to update your bylaws or amend them now, correct?
Yeah. Within a couple months, 6 to 8 weeks, and then we still want to pursue the other longer term benefits, but they are, in my mind, the village expansion project and the Goddard campus are wanting to hit the ground running relatively soon. Not learn by the end of 2025 or 2026 that, oh yeah, we can put multifamily houses up there.
So you said it hasn't closed yet?
No.
Do you know when it's closing?
It's under contract. It's been under contract with 3 different parties. This is the 3rd party that's been under contract. So it's not a done deal. Well, it's a
Okay.
done deal. But whoever buys it has to have more options than just, you know, the limited options under the rural residential area. Or, you know, they're not going to
Yeah.
just have it be a educational institution. They got to do something else. If they're paying $3 million for it.
Yeah, then it looks like if this buyer goes through, they're going to have rental apartments.
That's what their
Is that-
that's what their job that's what their business is.
Is this long-term or short-term rental?
Yeah, so
I think it's well, it's apartments. I mean,
I'm not
I
sure.
sent you the link. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in Hanover, so it's a different
Yeah.
market,
Mm.
and the apartments look really nice. But we don't need $3,500 a month apartments in Plainfield.
Mhm.
No, but do they also do affordable housing rentals or?
Yes,
Yeah.
it doesn't, they don't make a big case of it, but I mean,
Okay.
that's what they got to try to do, I would
Yeah.
think. Like I say, I just learned about it today. I just looked them up on the internet. I sent you the links. You can look at them.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
nice apartments. And I might get in touch with the guy and just see what he's thinking. But in my mind, expanding the district to include the campus, the village district, would allow them some room to play with
Mhm.
versus 2026. Maybe they can sit on it for a couple of years. I don't know. But we could use the apartments soon.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I believe they are long-term, well, not short-term rentals, but again, I'm not sure. You'll probably have to write that into your bylaws.
Well, you mean limited to long-term rentals, no Airbnb?
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't go over so well. Not
Okay.
easy to do.
Yes, but I think in the meantime, I will find out if this is actually a process that can be done. And even if they advise against it, I'll see if we can actually do this, you know, by following the rules and expanding the village district with the intention of expanding into an NDA as well for the
Yeah.
outer parts of the
Okay.
village core.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that much. So you guys,
I mean,
guys
I
help us
feel like
out.
it is a pretty unique circumstance that there's this sort of institution that's historically there that has all this infrastructure. It's on main roads, it's on water and sewer. It just happens to be removed from the core village center. So I could imagine
Yeah.
that falling into something that's a little bit unusual for
It-
other
it-
towns.
It's
maybe.
unusual, but like I think 4 campuses in the Vermont have done the same thing where they've gone bankrupt and they've taken up other uses. So
Right.
it's
The-
we won't be
thing
the
that-
first.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not sure if a village center can be non-contiguous.
A
That
village
is,
center can't. No, it has to be contiguous.
so-
I'm talking about a zoning district.
okay, that's right. Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
So-
it's a different
yeah.
animal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to find that out, and then we'll get back to you soon. We won't leave it a very long time.
Okay, yeah, it's a pretty
because
simple
I think-
question, really.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, and then with the NDA process, you're gonna speak with the rest of the committee to see
Yes.
if
Yep,
it's
yep,
something
just
they wanna do.
explain what it is, what it can do, and if you would send me those PowerPoints. And
Yes.
Will, if you've got sort of an overview of your origami thing you had going there.
We do have like a slideshow that's Act 181 and also just key points for municipalities on how this affects you and what you need to do moving forward. So
that would be great, just to have a better overall picture of things.
Yeah.
Can I ask a silly question? Possibly a silly question. I'm kind of doing a little catch up on this, but this neighborhood development designation that we're talking about, is it specifically the application would apply to a lot or a series of lots as opposed to like a zone?
it's more than a lot. It is like a zone, but it can be different zones around your village center. So if you wanted to include the Goddard campus, you could. There's also, I don't know, is it Berry Hill, just south of the village center?
Yeah, well, there's Berry Hill, but this property is near the village expansion project. It's just south of the village near the town shed.
Yeah, just where Bram Tobin's. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is, those 3 parcels are really the first NDA development area that Plainfield has asked for or interested in. I know with NDA applications, they do suggest combining multiple areas to make the application process more simple, and you're also kind of thinking long term. But again, that's entirely up to you. So, but we will be having these future land use conversations in the next year, because our future land use map as a region is going to be updated and change based on Act 181, because it's a huge land use reform bill. So yeah, it's a lot to think about. But I think in the meantime, let's try to just expand the zoning district and to include Goddard. And that might be the first step. Yeah, see if it works. Okay. And then also try to pursue this NDA as well.
That sounds rational, and it might work.
Yeah.
Hard to know.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you don't end up doing the NDA, you still have gotten a lot of information that you will probably need for the future anyway, if you pursue in the future. So it's a good thing either way.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
great.
and then just the process for interim adoption. Instead of we have this draft zoning, Will's going to check on make sure it all is legit and up to date, and then we just present it to the select board and they can adopt it. Yeah, we did that once. I don't know what's changed in the rules and regulations.
So this would be a bylaw amendment, correct?
Yeah. Well, it's basically going to change. I guess it's amendment. It's a whole new document.
Yeah. It's a whole. So is it? But did you amend it from the earlier one?
Yeah, it's amended.
Yeah.
Okay. It's got like a whole list of when it could amend. So we can call, if we call it an amendment, sure, it's an amendment.
And I've actually been sending this process out to a few towns, so I can send it to you as well.
Great.
But there is, where you have to do public hearings and then notification in the newspaper and things like that. So,
okay. Yeah. But it's easier than the vote.
Process.
But you just don't have to do the town vote. Which
not
is
that I'm aware of. Yeah, not for a bylaw update.
Yeah, okay, because it's the vote. We've always tried to time it to another vote that the town, like either the primary, the general, or the town meeting, and that gets really complicated to bring that in on a target date.
Okay. Yeah, Berlin is currently also doing a bylaw amendment.
Okay.
But I will just double check that, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Just to clarify, you're trying to adopt the interim draft, like do an interim adoption of the current draft, and then if you did later changes to rezone Goddard, that would be in a next interim adoption. Or
no, I want to put the Goddard in this one. Yep.
Great. Okay. Cool. Adoption. Okay. Great. So just to confirm, so our follow-up is, can village zoning districts be non-contiguous? And then TIF, so tax increment financing, is that only in neighborhood development areas, or do you already have that option through the village center that you already have?
It would only be in the village center, but yeah, I think we do. A village center designation provides TIFs.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And then the summary of the origami current designation, future land use map, new designation, and whether, at least initial prognosis of whether you might be able to add in the designation for Goddard after the Tobin pasture,
Yeah.
through the future land use map categories.
Yep.
And again, we can't really give you, those rules haven't been totally defined, but we can at least give you a good sense and just like what the process will be, and then we'll tell you the rules once they come out. And then the draft zoning interim adoption, whether that is the fastest way to go ahead with it. And I'll just double check if it meets the 8 out of 10 neighborhood development area requirements. And that's it, right? We'll
Okay,
get back to you with those answers as soon as possible. And missing anything?
that's enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good start.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you'll send us, or maybe you already have, and I just haven't seen the email, the latest zoning
Yes, I
draft.
got that right here. I can do that.
Great. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks
Well,
for meeting with us.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody. So we'll
Will Colgan, can
yeah.
we stay back and talk for a minute?
Sure, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Nikki and Will.
All right. I'm trying to get out of here. Sorry.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
Hi.
Are you
I just want to
confused
make
yet?
sure that I understand what's going on,
Oh,
and
man.
also bring in a couple of thoughts.
Yeah.
So this like grant application was approved by the select board, I think, the other day,
They
correct?
just well, yeah, they just wanted to. There's a grant application to get the designation.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
grant yeah.
And so who's actually submitting the grant application? Is it someone on the grant writing committee?
I think Michael Zahner. I'll have to check with him. It
Yeah.
was we got put in the line for the applications. There were $70,000, and the next time he looked at the thing, it was only $30,000, like a day later. So he said, we better. So everybody wrote their letters and they submitted
Okay.
it. But we don't even know if we have, where that stage is.
Yeah.
It's in process.
Yeah.
And that is all to get the new neighborhood development area designation.
Right.
So the CVRP will do all the work, help with that.
And if I understood that conversation we just had,
Yeah.
there actually needs
Good
to
for
be
you.
There needs to be a design
Yes.
for this development
Yes.
before you could get that designation anyway,
Yes.
because the neighborhood needs to be designed with
Yes.
all of these characteristics to meet the 8 out of 10.
Right. Yeah, which
So this all depends on this pro bono architect that's working with Arian,
right.
doing a drawing of a development, and
Yes.
but that's all theoretical until there's a sale, correct?
I mean, you could theoretically design all this stuff without buying it.
And so you could get that neighborhood so in other words, the neighborhood designation, the neighborhood development designation we were just talking about, would apply to the properties that Bram currently owns with this theoretical design.
Yes.
But you don't have to have built it to get the designation.
No.
Okay.
No, this would all.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I don't know where I mean, this is my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there are neighbors that don't like this at all.
Yeah.
And the idea of subverting an Act 250 permit, they're going to ride. They're going to use that as a reason why it's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it still has to go through the town permitting process. It's all got to be done at the development review board.
I'm just keying you in that there are two neighbors that really don't want this to happen because they see it as their backyard and they don't want
it is their
development
backyard
there.
Yeah. That's true of everything.
And the other possible monkey wrench is that I know George Kingston and Rose are interested in getting the wetlands mapped before things move forward.
Yeah, they need to move. They need to map the wetlands, because the wetlands, you can't build there anyway. So
that's kind of probably going to sort of have to be the first step.
I think that's already in process. They were discussing about how to. Arian was saying, well, we got to do the wetlands, and who's going to pay for that. And there's there's a lot of unknowns in this project.
Yeah.
So, but if in terms of what's immediately needed, even if there was no new development area, there would still be the possibility of doing the project as it is with the 30 lots and that. The new development area would provide the some of the finance, I guess some of the financing options would be broader, and the Act 250 process would be easier or non-existent,
Right,
depending on.
because and again, just like there's so many parts to these things where I can't I can't like hold all the information at once,
Yeah,
but the Act 250 permit would happen as part of the subdivision, correct? Because it's currently like
yeah.
a three
Depending on
lots.
depending on how they depending on how the land was subdivided, if you go more than 10 lots, you have to do the Act 250. They could do 9 lots and they wouldn't have to do the Act 250. But they don't want to
They
do
can
nine
do
lots.
like 9 lots per current lot or 9 lots total.
Uh, I'm not sure how you could, well, some of that property is not developable, the steep and the wet. And
Right.
and and there are probably ways you could finagle that 10 lot limit, 10 acres per lot, but it's a 10 acres and 10 lots, and I think they'd have to go through the Act 250 process, but they are in the village. Um, they're part of the village center, so they do have this priority housing possibility because they're in the village center or the close proximity of the village. So it doesn't get rid of everything, but it helps move along.
And that's kind of already in place, that
That's in
priority
place.
housing thing.
Yes. Well, that designation of they're in the village center because they're close to the village center. They're within a quarter mile of the village center designated area, and that provides more leeway in the permitting process, but not as much as the new neighborhood development area,
Mhm.
as I understand.
Yeah, interesting.
It's it's
I mean,
crazy.
this whole everything I understand about this, and I had a pretty extensive conversation with Arian about it, and then I
Yeah,
sat in on this meeting of like my neighbors, some
yeah,
of whom support it, some of
huh,
whom are kind of neutral, and some of whom adamantly oppose it.
yeah.
And from where I'm sitting, this whole thing is threading a needle that is wicked complex.
Oh, it is absolutely.
It assumes so many things would come together, and I'm just like, good luck everybody,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
getting the town to fund the infrastructure,
well, no, no,
what'll
no,
happen if anyone thinks the town is on the hook for anything around
no, no,
this.
no. I think the point is there's funding available, like the TIF funding to expand it, where you take the the taxes you will get over the next 20 years, and you can front load that for a lot of the infrastructure. So it is possible. It's not totally out of the question, but you're right. A lot of things have to fall in place.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, I think I'm
yeah,
just trying to work through the things I am hearing and absorbing and get a little bit more clarity because um, I certainly think, I mean, one thing I've been pointing out is like it's very consistent with the town plan that we just passed.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
our town plan is all about developing high density in the village, utilizing existing infrastructure.
yeah.
Um,
And
and
the town,
clearly
yeah, and
we
the
need
town
the
lost,
tax base.
yeah, got crushed. So, maybe this Goddard might do something, but maybe not. The town is down a bunch of houses
Yeah,
and you can't build them back where they were.
yeah,
I mean, that's sort of the end of the final argument is say we lost a lot of houses. They're gone.
yeah,
Where are you going to put them?
right. And
That's
the question you were slightly separate, the question you were asking was, does the CVRP, Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, kind of like know of any kind of legal reasons why we as the town planning commission can't simply change the designation for Goddard College on our zoning map.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if we can do that, it would be a legitimate way to, enable some more creative use of that property.
And practically speaking, what we need to do is we need to make some edits to the zoning map
Yeah.
that's in the
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah, just change the lines.
It's just that we need to recolor the
Yeah.
area that
I mean, I'm kind of a simpleton and not a complicated guy. I think you just do
Yeah.
that.
And
You
I
know?
guess the only risk is we do it and then someone comes back and says that wasn't allowed.
Well, we want to find that out ahead of time.
Right.
And
But
then the other,
who could say that?
well, just a lawyer.
A
There are plenty
lawyer
of them
for a
out there.
neighbor or something?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But I drove up by Greatwood and Drive, and it doesn't make sense to make that part of the village. It's not a village. It's houses spread out on 2-3 acre, 5 acre lots. But the College campus, I was thinking of just drawing this big, whatever is on town water and sewer is now the village. But that's not quite representative of what's on the ground. And I know those
Right.
people like Karen Buffard and she might get upset. But those people up on Greatwood Drive, as Karen said, they don't want to be in the village. So can you just make a little satellite village?
Yeah.
And that Green Mountain College went bankrupt, got sold to put other stuff on. There's another college, a couple of colleges campuses, the same thing. So what did those towns do? Let's find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
And then the other thing that jumped out, sorry to belabor this, but I'm just trying to again
Don't
answer
forget,
these
we're being
questions I
recorded.
have.
This is going on the town website for posterity.
Yeah.
If I can
Sure.
figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I didn't realize that the Goddard campus is split up between 3 towns. It's
Yes,
Plainfield, Marshfield, and East Montpelier.
Yeah, East Montpelier, the Northwood campus, it's been apartments for 20 years. The little bit in Marshfield isn't a little. The meat of the project. The meat of the project is all in Plainfield.
Okay, all of the main campus buildings and all of those dorm buildings are all Plainfield.
All
and
of
that's really what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the old farm properties and the dormitories of the Greatwood campus. And I think the wood chip plant is in Plainfield too. Marshfield comes in there a little bit.
The wood chip plant is where?
Is in Plainfield.
Oh, it is.
Sure it is.
And also, what about the old design and art buildings that are condemned?
Some of the libraries in Plainfield, but some of those buildings may be part of them in Marshfield. I'm not sure.
Okay.
The boundaries, they're in East Montpelier rather. That East Montpelier boundary, I'd have to look at it closer on the map. But I don't think they're going to do a lot with those. They may. Yeah. I have no idea what shape they're in.
Yeah.
It's the old buildings and the dormitories, and that's pretty limited. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what that. Like I say, this deal hasn't closed either. Except they have money. This company, I think, struck a deal where they would pay off all the debts that Goddard needed. But the Greatwood project said they had the money too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it'll certainly get interesting. If you know anybody else who wants to join the planning commission, we could use it. Always might get more fun.
This stuff, like when we hear those, when we hear those descriptions like Will Pitkin was just giving, and I'm like, this is why I don't do this kind of thing for work, because I can.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Talk to Paula Emery. She goes to these meetings, and I think it fills your head with this stuff. And people love it. I mean, the people who are into this are into the planning world. I mean, they just get so lost into this thing.
Right. They need a good diagram is what they need.
Well, he was working. Will had that thing going.
Know. He needs a good picture.
Yeah.
Some little trees and some people and some arrows going from one branch to 3 branches
Yeah,
and
yeah, you got it. You're good. Keep working on that.
yeah, nope, nope. I got other problems.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Will.
thank you.
Take care.
Okay, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.